All right. Thanks everyone for joining again and welcome. My name is Javier Robolino and I work on our community and developer relations initiatives here at Front. Thanks for taking the time to join our workshop today to learn about connectors. Very excited to talk to you about them. We hope that you get a lot out of this and please feel free to raise your hand in Zoom or type questions as we go along. Just type them into the Q&A. And we can stop and answer those as we go along. Would love to know, what's on your mind, if anything's confusing or not. As I said, today we're going to explore Front Connectors, which is our no-code framework that lets you integrate with external systems, such as your CRM, your project management tools, any custom databases you might have, and really just any system that has an API. So with connectors, you can bring data in from these systems directly into your Front conversations to give your teammates extra context. You can also take actions in those systems without leaving your inbox. And all of this requires absolutely no coding or developer resources on your end. Anybody can learn this. You just need to learn a little bit about APIs, but we're going to share all those resources with you today and kind of walk you through an example of a real world use case with HubSpot. We also, want to just announce that we've launched a small little library of pre-built connectors for platforms, including Salesforce, HubSpot, Jira, Asana, and Pipedrive, and we plan to continue to add more of those. So this makes it even easier for you to get started with connectors. You don't need to build the connector yourself. You can just get these connectors directly from our App Store, and we'll show you how that works today. And then you'll have full access to that particular service's entire API. So that means that you can update records in that service, check statuses, create tasks, and much more, everything that's available through their API. And you can access this functionality directly in your rules, in your macros, and in your chatbots in Front using our connectors. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to walk through a connector workflow that enables your Front teammates to update any property on a HubSpot contact. And all you have to do is run a macro in Front. So let's take a look at how that works first. Okay, and I believe I'm not showing the right screen right now, so 1 second. Okay, here we go. So this macro that we have here is going to run, and you can, like a Front teammate can go ahead and run that. And when it runs, it's going to ask you for the name of the contact. So right now we're going to type in Kyle and search for all the Kyles in our HubSpot instance. So when we click next, the connector will run and it will go through the API, through HubSpot's API, retrieve the list of Kyles that we have in our HubSpot instance. So when we click this dropdown, we see a couple Kyles here, and this will correspond to the Kyles that we have in HubSpot. So we can see here that in our test HubSpot instance, we've got the same two Kyles that you see here over in Front. So you can select one of them, click next, and then select the property that you want to update. So HubSpot actually has a lot of properties on their context. So you can see here that there's like quite a lot of information here that you can update. Just going through here, and this will pull in anything that's custom to your HubSpot instance as well. We're going to go ahead and update the phone number right now just for demonstration purposes. So when I click next, I'll go ahead and type in a new phone number in here, 512-777, and click next. And this will run a connector that updates that contact and go ahead and update that contact. So believe we might have had a little issue there, but okay. So small issue, but like I think something might have just changed in the back end. I'll just go ahead and show you the connector working through like how you set this up. So the first thing you want to do is go to your company settings and go to developers, or sorry, go to the App Store. And so here, what you want to do is search for HubSpot. So we can see the HubSpot's over here. We can search for it up here as well. And when we look at HubSpot, what we want to do is enable this app. So in this case, we already have our app enabled. So, but if you don't have it app enabled, you'll see an enable app button up on the top right. So you can go ahead and start enabling that app. And when you do, you'll be asked to link to a HubSpot account. So you would see like a sign in button here. We're already signed in, so we already have an account linked. But if you don't, you would click that, and then you would enter your HubSpot credentials and kind of go through the process of signing in. You might be asked to select a particular HubSpot account if you have multiple accounts. But essentially, that's all you need to do to grab these connectors. So once you have that enabled and you've signed into HubSpot, you will then be able to go into the workspace that you're working in. So I'm going to go to this Balcony Bliss workspace. And this workspace here will want to go to our rules and macros, and then go to macros and click on create a new macro. So we're going to create a macro from scratch. And we're choosing a macro just because we want a teammate to be able to go ahead and, like how we demonstrated, like type in a property name, select the property, type in a contact name, select the property they want to update on that contact, and enter a new value. You also have access to these connectors in rules and chatbots, which are more automated flows. For updating a contact in HubSpot, it made more sense to use a macro. So once we're in here, I'm going to just show you real quick. I'm going to drop in a send app request node just to show you some options here. But we'll delete this node in a second, just for demonstrations. So this node is actually a connector that performs an action in an external API. So if we go and select the actual app request that we want to use, we've got all our different apps here. For our purposes, we're interested in HubSpot. So we see that we got 105 different connectors. So these all correspond to essentially API endpoints in HubSpot's API. You can see you can create a deal, you can create a contact, you can update these contacts, you can merge two companies together. There's just a lot of stuff you can do. So whatever you can do in HubSpot's API, you can do through the front connector. So these connectors will be available in all your workflows in different places. So I just wanted to point that out, kind of give you the context for how this is laid out. But to actually start this macro, what we're going to do is the first thing we want to do is actually collect the teammate input. So if you remember, the first part of our macro was asking for the name of the HubSpot contact. So in this case, the name of the HubSpot contact, the way we get that is by collecting a teammate answer. So the first node we want to drop into our macro will be collect teammate answer. And here we just add a prompt, and it'll be a simple text input because all we're doing really is asking for the name of the contact. So I might enter here, enter the name of the contact and keep it as text and click done. Just click done there. So now we've got that part of it set up. And so the next portion of this is going to be actually selecting the contact you want. So this is the second part where we saw the Kyles come back from HubSpot's API. So this piece of it is actually powered by one of our connectors, because the information that comes from HubSpot is what we need to determine, like, which Kyles match. And when we come over here back to front, we're going to add in another teammate answer node. And when we click the prompt, what we're going to look for is actually this dropdown, since we're presenting a dropdown list to our admin. So let's go ahead and name this select the contact you want to update, and we're going to power it with a connector. So similarly to what we saw when I just dropped in that app request node, just to demonstrate to you all what connectors were available, we're going to be able to open our full list of apps that we have. These are all our connectors in this demo instance we have, and we can see HubSpot here. And we're going to want to look for the connector that allows us to search for a HubSpot contact. And this connector, you can just you can use this search box. It's a lot easier to search for contact, and you'll see the HubSpot icon. You could also type in HubSpot in here to just kind of limit it to things that correspond to HubSpot. So that's pretty useful to use this search that way. And we'll go ahead and use this connector to search for our contacts. And you're going to see a lot of inputs in here. These all correspond to the inputs that you would send the API itself. So when when you like try to figure out what you're supposed to put in here, you want to go to HubSpot's API docs and search for the particular endpoint that corresponds to the connector you're using. So in this case, we're using the search for contacts connector. There is on API's developers page, and we'll send links out to this so you don't have to search for it yourself. We'll like put this all together, but here is the developer docs for that, and it'll show you information about like what everything means from the filter groups to the limit to the properties. These are all inputs that you see in the API. And if this doesn't make a lot of sense to you right now, don't worry. We'll walk through it for this demonstration, but we'll also link out to a course that we offer on our academy that walks you through all the details of APIs. Again, you don't have to be an engineer to learn this. It's a little bit technical, but when you go through the course, you'll be able to like kind of start to understand what all these different properties mean. And it takes a little bit of practice, but it's really not something that you need an engineering degree to understand. So again, if you have any doubts, read the docs, and they'll have information about what you enter in each of these places. So when we do read the docs, we will discover that what's important here is I'll show you this particular page of the docs. When you're making a search request, you want to use this filter groups object that you see here, and this is called JSON format. Again, it's a little bit of a technical term, but it's a very common pattern that you see in APIs where you have these property names followed by their values, and we'll send resources that will help you understand this. But essentially what HubSpot is telling us is that the way their search endpoint works is they want you to send the property name, such as like email, and then like an operator that tells them like, does this email contain something or is it equal to something? And then the value you're searching for. So in their example, they're searching for contacts in their system that have an email that contain this HubSpot.com domain. For our purposes, what we're going to want to do in this filter groups input is create a filter that filters on the first name. So you could also add in the last name and things like that, but for this demo, we're just going to focus on first name. Their operator is EQ. By reading their docs, you know that that corresponds to equals. So we're essentially saying that we're searching for a contact that equals a certain value. And this value is going to be the answer that your teammate supplied in the previous node where they entered the name. So for example, Kyle. So in this case, what we'll do is click this little plus sign to add in that variable. And we can see here that we've already got it there. It says enter the name of the contact. So we'll click that there. So now what we're doing with this connector that's searching for contacts, we're passing in information about the name that our teammate entered and asking HubSpot to search any contact that has a first name that matches that. So these other inputs are optional. You can read about them in the API docs. They essentially give you other features, like maybe you want to return the context in a certain sort order, like by last name or something like that. But for our purposes, we're just going to keep it simple for this demo and just search by their first name. And then for these drop-down lists options, this is what we present to the teammate once the search runs. So HubSpot returns through our connector a list of results. So we're just going to click those results. And in the text that we display to our teammates, we want to provide something useful so that they know what they're selecting. So we go back here, we provided the name of the teammate and their email address. So what we can do is click this little plus sign, and it's going to give us some properties that came back for each contact that matched. So I want to select the first name, and then I'm going to click a space and select their last name. I'm going to use a little pipe symbol just to separate things cleanly in the UI, and then provide their email. So now the admin that's running this macro can see the first name and last name of each contact that match plus their email, so they can know which contact to select and which contact you're trying to update. So that should be a unique way to make sure you're grabbing the right contact. So once we're done with that, we'll click done and click done again. And then we can move on to our next node. So our next node, if you remember, would be the actual properties on the contact that you can update. So this was like that very long list of contact properties that HubSpot provides. And when we create this node, we want to do the same thing we did in the previous node. We want to collect teammate answers because they're going to select from a dropdown. So we're going to click to add prompt. We will click dropdown. Let's give this the name of select the property you want to update. And again, we'll power it from a connector. And so in this case, we're looking for a connector that will describe the properties on a contact. And so if you look through the API docs that HubSpot provides, there's going to be this get existing schema endpoint that does exactly that. So what we'll do here is search for schema, and this HubSpot icon says get a CRM object schema. So we'll go ahead and click that. And the input that you need here is like the type of object in HubSpot that you're looking for. You can identify the correct value here by reading the API docs, but we know we're searching for contact, so we're going to type in contact here. And similarly to the previous point, like this connector runs, it gets properties back from the API. So what we're looking for is the properties on that contact. Click that, and then we'll add in what we present to the admin. So in these options text box, we have a lot of available fields that we can present to the admin, but what we really care about is the label. The label is like the user-facing value of that property. So for example, it might be the address, it might be the phone number or something like that. You also see that there's a name, and that can be a little bit confusing, but if you read the API docs, there's some clarity on that, but it's a very typical thing that you see in APIs. The name is most likely a name used by the API. It's not going to be like the user-facing label. It probably doesn't contain spaces and things like that in it. But so what we want is like the clean human readable version, which is the label. So all we need to do there is click label, and then we can click done and done. So now if we look back at our macro, we've got a macro that prompts the teammate to enter a name to search for. Our connector goes to the HubSpot API and searches for that particular contact. You then present the list of drop-down options that match that search to the admin. So the teammate will be able to click the contact that matches precisely based on their last name, their first name, and their email address. And then they get a list of properties that they can update, and they can select the property in particular that they want to update. So then the next step is to enter a new value for the property that you want to update. So we'll click in here and do another collect teammate answers node and add a prompt. Let's call this enter a new value for the property. And this can just be a simple text input because it's coming from the user. We don't need to power it through a connector or anything like that. But it would be useful to maybe tell them what property they're updating. So what I'm going to do here is click the plus sign up here in this prompt, and I'm going to create a new dynamic variable that will represent the property label. So click a new dynamic variable. And I don't think I took the time to explain what dynamic variables are, but essentially they're ways of getting like kind of on the fly information from the front, a conversation you're working with, or from the external data you're working with. So it's a very powerful system. There's a lot of things you can do here. And if you have any questions about using this system, we'll email out afterwards, and like, please feel free to reply to that email or ask questions on the community, and we'll help you learn this system. So it's really useful, really great thing to use in your workflows. But anyway, back to the demo, we'll go ahead and create new. And what we're looking for is the label of the property, as I mentioned. So the first thing we want to do is identify the property that was selected. So you can see here in this little drop-down menu, we've got all our previous answers that we selected. So this property down here that's called select the property you want to update answer, that was what our teammate selected when the list of properties was shown. So we want to start there, and then we want to add a step to extract its label. So in this case, if they had selected the address, this dynamic variable is going to represent the value address. So I'm going to call this the property label. And I'm going to click save, and then I'm going to drop it in here. So property label. So now what we have is enter a new value for the address or for the phone number. So it makes a little bit more sense because it gives our teammates a little bit more context for what they're updating, even though they had just selected that value in the previous step. So now we'll click done and click done again. And so overall, what we have here is kind of everything we need thus far. The final step is going to be to update a contact directly in HubSpot system. So the way we want to do that is by sending an app request that literally just updates the contact. So I'm going to click this plus sign again and send that app request. And in this case, we're looking for a API endpoint that updates the contact. So by reading their docs, we can see here that there's an individual contact endpoint, and it kind of explains how to use it. You'll see here that you send some properties like their favorite food. Again, this is JSON notation, so we'll send resources that'll help you understand this a little bit better if this is new to you. But essentially, it's like the value of what you're trying to update, provided by the new specific value that you're trying to enter. So go back here, and we're going to search for update contact HubSpot. And so this one here, updated contact, is the one that matches. And it's really just looking for the contact ID followed by those properties that you want to update. So in this case, what I'll do is click the plus sign, and we want to look for the contact that we selected. So and then did I skip a step maybe? Select the let me give me 1 second. Select the contact you want to update. Okay. So we'll do that again, do update a contact. And click new dynamic variable. And then here, what we'll do is select the contact that you wanted to update. So this is like the actual specific contact that the teammate selected. So we'll click them, we'll add a step, and then what we're looking for here is the ID. This is what the API uses to update contacts. So click field ID. I'm going to call this contact ID and click save. And so then I can use this here because that's what the input that's required is the actual ID for that contact that was selected. I'll enter that in there. And now we're looking at the properties we want to update. So the way we had shown here was they've got these properties that you enter the property value and then what you want to update it to. So we'll go ahead and do that in this little box. And I've got some text I'm going to copy and paste in here. But essentially what this would look like is if you were updating this directly, you would say something like, I want to update the address, or maybe I want to update the phone number of the contact, and then the new value is going to be, whatever the new value is. But since these are gathered from our teammate answers, we're going to input variables for these. And it's the notation for this JSON notation, you've got some curly braces, and then you've got some quotation marks, followed by a colon, followed by more quotation marks, and then the value of what you're updating. So we're just going to use that structure. If you have any questions about that, let us know after. But I'm going to drop in the values that we need here. So in this case, I need to create a new dynamic variable again. We're going to select the property that they selected in the drop-down menu. So this would be the select the property you want to update answer. I'm going to extract the name. So if you remember, we talked about how there's a difference between label and name in most APIs. We want the name when we update the actual API property, because that's how the API works. It works on the name. It doesn't work on the human readable value. So we'll select the name, and I'm going to call this property name. Sorry, property name, click save, and drop it in here between those two quotation marks, property name. And then the value that we were updated to is simply what the teammate requested updated to in the previous node. So That one we already have a value for. It's enter a new value for property answer. We just click that one. Uh, and then this is good to go. We've got an ID that identifies the contact that was selected, and we've got the properties that we want to update for this particular contact. And so we'll click done. And at this point, the macro is complete. It allows us to enter a name for a contact, search for those contacts. You'll see the list of contacts that match. You'll then be presented all the properties for contacts that you can update. And so you'll select one. It might be the address, might be the phone number, it might be their company. And then you enter a new property value. And then we actually run the connector that updates the contact in HubSpot. And when you do that, you can go back to HubSpot, refresh it, and you'll see that your contact updated. When you finish this macro, you can like put some useful information in here about what was updated. So you could say the contact with this name was updated and the new value is this. Otherwise, like if something fails, you can say, this failed, so maybe you want to go look at it. So you just kind of present some information to your users about the operation that happened. You can also continue to add different nodes depending on your use case to have like branching logic to do different things depending on what comes back from the API. But essentially, that's all you need to do to update any HubSpot contacts property. And with the connectors that we have available, you're not limited to updating HubSpot contacts. You can update like anything, any other object in HubSpot. So there's over 100 API endpoints that come pre-bundled with these connectors that are available from our app store. So you can kind of look through there, and whatever your use case is, you can figure out what works for you and reference the API docs in order to figure out how to make each connector work. But hopefully that will be very useful to you. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer some of those now. And if you have any questions later, we'd be happy to help you through those through the email and through the community. So I'm going to turn it over to questions. We've got a question here. How do you open or trigger the macro? Okay. So this macro is set up like we did here for a particular workspace. So I'm just going to cancel out of this and kind of return. So when you go to your settings, you go to the workspace that you want the macro to run in. I selected this Balcony Bliss demo account, and then I went to macros and I created a macro here. So we see that there's a few macros in here, and essentially this is the macro that we ran. You can apply it to any inbox and have any teammate access it, or you could like limit it to certain inboxes or limit it to certain teammates from accessing it. But if you've got a macro set up in this space, then when you go back to your inbox and on the left here, you can see this Balcony Bliss workspace and our inbox for support. This is where we would expect that macro to be available because we saved it in that workspace settings. And so when I click on a message, you can see like go through different conversations. There's different messages in here, but there's this little box that's like our macro selection box. So when I click in there, I'll see the macros that we had configured in our settings for that particular workspace. So this update HubSpot contact is the one that we had created, and that's how we trigger it. But you would have to create that macro first before you'd be able to trigger it here in your actual inbox. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but you can let us know if it doesn't. I can also take you off mute if you want to ask a more detailed question. Uh, are there any other questions, Kelsey? Yeah. Yeah, let's Jacob, if it's okay, I'm going to allow you to talk. So if you want to, you can just ask your question directly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I just was curious if that macro selection dropdown is only visible if you have a macro in the workspace.
Yes. So if you have not configured a macro, at all, I believe that that little drop down will not show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just was wondering, because if a user is not used to seeing it, they have to educate them like how to, okay, you're gonna see this box now, so what does this
Yeah.
mean? So yes.
That's true. Yeah. Like when you roll this out, like practically speaking, you would have to educate your users on using on like, where it's at. You probably want to have some controls in place on like what you can and can't update in a real world use case. So there'll be some training to think about with
Okay.
your frontline teammates.
All right, cool. And then from your perspective, like what are some common uses that people use macros for?
So the most common use cases we see with connectors in general, one is to bring in data. Like we haven't shown that piece of it, but we'll link out to some examples on our community and our docs. But what we showed here were app requests. So app requests essentially allow you to take actions in an external system, and just based on what that API lets you do, you can you can update contacts, you can delete them, you can create new contacts. So with app request, we see a lot of people who essentially want to create a new record or update an existing record. I think those would be like some of the more common use cases. We also have a concept of an app object, which brings in information from the external system. That is, we don't package app objects with these pre-built connectors, but those are things that you can kind of add on yourself. And essentially, when you've got a conversation, let's say you've got like an order number in a conversation, it can detect that order number and then go find information about it in your external system, and then give you a little box of information about that order. So you might be able to see the shipment status and different properties that are relevant to you. So people can either use that manually in their conversations when they're responding by like looking at that application object and saying, let me respond to this customer, telling them where this orders at based on the information coming back through our connector. Or you can even power like downstream rules on top of that, which is really powerful because you might have some opportunity come your way and an app object in your external system that where you're tracking this opportunity. And there might be some condition, some field, like maybe it's like the monetary value or some determination of risk or something like that that comes back from that field in your external system. And if it comes back below or above a certain threshold, you might want to just have a rule that like automatically moves it to a certain inbox, or maybe just archives it because it's not worth your time to look at. So things like that, it's like you can power like, automations and rules in front based on information that's actually stored externally. That's really powerful. So those are the two main use cases, like getting more information so your teammates can answer better, or powering downstream rules that help you kind of sort through the clutter automatically, as well as like having your teammates take actions. Like a customer might say they want a refund, so you can then take an action through a connector and say, let's go ahead and refund this order. Let me look up the customer, get their orders, select the order I want, then let me refund this particular value, this particular dollar amount on this order, process that refund to a connector. You don't have to leave front. It can all be powered through the connector, and you don't need to write code to do it. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you very much for explaining
Yep.
that.
Thanks for the question. Really good question. Let's see. Any others, Kelsey? Okay. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions, but we will send out a follow-up email that summarizes all this information, shares the video, gives you links to other resources. And so once you all start experimenting with connectors, let us know if you run into any issues, you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them and just help you get up and running with them so you can like utilize all their value. Again, thank you for your time, and we hope you have a nice day. So, cheers.